Og, king of Bashan. Og, king of Bashan, was a mighty and infamous Amorite king of Bashan, who reigned at Ashtaroth during Moses' time and fought the Israelites on their way back to the Promised Land. God granted the Israelites victory over King Og's forces, and Moses and the Israelites captured Bashan, a fertile land east of the Jordan River. Because of Og's terrifying strength and the Israelite forces' relative inexperience, the victory was significant. Leading up to the Israelites' encounter with Og, king of Bashan, was a battle with another Amorite king, Sihon. Moses had asked Sihon to allow the Israelites to pass through his land, promising not to take any of the Amorites' resources along the way. But Sihon instead gathered his forces and attacked the Israelites. God helped Moses and the Israelites defeat the Amorites and take their land. Numbers 21, verses 33 to 35, Amplified Bible. Then they turned and went up by the way of Bashan, and Og the king of Bashan went out against them, he and all his people, to the battle of Edrei. But the Lord said to Moses, "Do not fear him, for I have handed over him and all his people and his land to you, and you shall do to him just as you did to Sihon king of the Amorites, who lived at Heshbon." So the sons of Israel killed Og and his sons and all his people until there was no survivor left to him, and they all took possession of his land. We read, Og, king of Bashan, went out against them. This was another battle that Israel did not initiate, yet Israel was more than up to the challenge, and through their God, they won a glorious victory. Do not fear him, for I have delivered him into your hand. This was needed encouragement, because Og of Bashan was noted for his size and strength. Og was yet another Amorite king who was not a threat to Israel because the Lord had already given him and his domain to Israel. The outcome of Og's fight was already predetermined before he had even put on his armor. The battle between Og's forces and Moses' forces is described in Deuteronomy. According to the text, Og ruled over 60 fortified cities, all of which were conquered by the Israelites. This gave Israel more territory to occupy on the east side of the Jordan River, and it demonstrated to them that they could overcome the mighty enemies they would face on the west side of the Jordan River through the power of God. Deuteronomy 3, verses 3 to 7. So the Lord our God also gave into our hands Og, king of Bashan, and all his army. We struck them down, leaving no survivors. At that time we took all his cities. There was not one of the 60 cities that we did not take from them. The whole region of Argob, Og's kingdom in Bashan. All these cities were fortified with high walls and with gates and bars, and there were also a great many unwalled villages. We completely destroyed them, as we had done with Sihon, king of Heshbon, destroying every city, men, women, and children. But all the livestock and the plunder from their cities we carried off for ourselves. Like Sihon, Og led his entire army into battle against Israel, and in the case of Sihon, God had already decided to hand over the king, along with his whole army and land, to Israel. Israel destroyed the entire population and took control of all 60 cities in Og's kingdom, which had the same high walls as Sihon. When God chose to hand over an enemy to his people, even strong fortified cities were no match for the enemy. In the future, when they arrive in Jericho, the most striking illustration of that reality would take place there. He was also a huge man, with an iron bed that was 9 cubits long and 4 cubits wide, 13.5 feet long and 6 feet wide. The inclusion of this detail highlights Og's size. A man needing this size bed was most likely tall, 10 or 11 feet. Israel triumphed against Sihon and Og and took control of their extensive lands on the east bank of the Jordan River after they were vanquished. It was obvious that Og was not a weak ruler. Israel does not have any reason to be anxious regarding the size of its opponents. All that was required of them was to recall how powerful their God was. Deuteronomy 3, verse 11, Amplified Bible. For only Og, king of Bashan, was left of the remnant of the giants known as the Rephaim. Behold, his bed frame was a bed frame of iron. Is it not in Rabbah of the Amorites? It was 9 cubits, 12 feet long, and 4 cubits, 6 feet wide. Using the cubit of a man, the forearm to the end of the middle finger. His colossal bed had become famous, and no doubt had been saved as a memento. The news of the victory spread quickly, instilling fear in the hearts of those in Canaan. Rahab, a Jericho prostitute, believed the Lord had power even over that heavily fortified city because she and others had heard of the victory over Sihon and Og. Joshua 2 verse 10, Amplified Bible. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the 2 kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan on the east, to Sihon and Og, whom you utterly destroyed. Joshua 9 verses 9 to 10, Amplified Bible. They said to him, Your servants have come from a country that is very far away, because of the fame of the Lord your God. For we have heard the news about him, and all the remarkable things that he did in Egypt, and everything that he did to the 2 kings of the Amorites, who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon, the king of Heshbon, and to Og, the king of Bashan, who lived in Ashtaroth. Moses used the victory to encourage the Israelites as he left them in charge of Joshua and about to enter Canaan. Deuteronomy 31 verse 4. Psalm 135 verses 7 to 11. Who causes the vapors to arise from the ends of the earth? Who makes lightnings for the rain? Who brings the wind out of his storehouses? Who smote the firstborn of Egypt, both of man and beast? Who sent signs and wonders into the midst of you, O Egypt, upon Pharaoh and all his servants? Who smote nations, many and great, and slew mighty kings, Sihon, king of the Amorites, Og, king of Bashan, and all the kingdoms of Canaan. Psalm 136, verses 18 to 20. And slew famous kings, for his mercy and loving kindness endure forever, Sihon, king of the Amorites, for his mercy and loving kindness endure forever, and Og, king of Bashan, for his mercy and loving kindness endure forever. According to Deuteronomy 3 verse 11, Og was an offspring of the Rephites, indicating a man of great stature or giant. Joshua 12 verse 4, Amplified Bible. And the territory of Og, king of Bashan, one of the remnant of the Rephaim, who lived at Ashtaroth and at Edrei. Og is referred to as the last of the Rephaim in Deuteronomy 3 verse 11, and later in the books of Numbers and Joshua. Rephaim is a Hebrew word for giants. The Rephites or Rephaim were a people who lived in Canaan and elsewhere during Moses and Joshua's time. The term Rephites is descriptive, not an ethnic one. It means terrible ones. The Rephaim were battle-hardened giants. When the Israelites first attempted to enter the Promised Land, spies reported that it was inhabited by giants known as Nephilim and sons of Anak. The repeated references to the Rephaim in these first 3 chapters demonstrate that Israel, when trusting in God, was more than capable of defeating this fearsome warrior race. It also demonstrates that their fear of these men was unfounded in Numbers 13 when they refused to enter the Promised Land. Their excuses are shown to be weaker in the light of the next generation's victories. Nothing is too difficult for God. Nothing is impossible for him. Matthew 19, verse 26. But Jesus looked at them and said, With man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible.